Aimee Carlson is known as the Toxin Terminator. She is the host of the Toxin Terminator podcast, a best-selling author, and featured expert on numerous podcasts and summits. Aimee has spent the last 7 years removing hidden toxins from her own home to be free of chronic disease and has helped hundreds do the same. Through her podcast, she has had access to some of the top doctors, healers, experts, and industry leaders in the natural health and wellness field. Aimee's passion to giving hope to those who are still suffering, getting no relief from traditional medicine, and ready to take control by detoxing and cleansing their health and environment. So my first question to you is, why are you so passionate that detox is an important factor in our health?
Well, it's one of the pillars. I mean, we know that in order to live a healthy lifestyle, even the CDC tells us that what we eat, how we move, and our environment are the 3 contributing factors to whether we're going to develop a chronic disease or not. And in today's world, 1 out of 6 adults has a chronic disease, and 4 out of those 6 have multiple chronic diseases. And I really wanted to give light to that environment piece, because there's a lot of people out there talking about diet and nutrition. There is a lot of voices out there talking about movement and exercise, but there's limited resources in talking about the environment. And it is what changed my life, was changing what I was using inside my home. So it means everything to me. If it made such a difference in my life, I know it's going to make a difference in someone else's. And it's just a piece of that puzzle that we have to put all together, right?
Yeah, that's a great point that it's a pillar, because I think you're right. Everyone talks about diet and exercise. And you ask people, like, what do you do to stay healthy? Oh, diet and exercise. They don't even mention environment. And it's just more confused. I mean, you could say diet and exercise are confusing. Certainly there's arguments about what's best, but toxins, more confusing and just more unknown. So
well, and it is, and here's the thing. I was just talking to somebody earlier today. When I got introduced to this lifestyle, this holistic, natural lifestyle, honestly, it's not even a natural holistic. It's taking control and being the advocate for my body, for my choices, for what is working for my body. The word toxin wasn't in my vocabulary. I had no idea what that was. I grew up in the automotive industry. I was a certified mechanic. And so I knew well aware of what toxins were in that world. I knew that there were certain chemicals that we used, that we had to have appropriate dress and personal protective equipment on to use. I knew that we had to carry material safety data sheets. But I did not equate toxins to anything inside my home, because I was under the perception that if I could buy things in a store, then they were safe for me. I have this government. We live in the United States, the greatest country in the world. And how in the world would they allow a product to be put out onto the shelf and know it causes harm to humans? And I couldn't have been farther from the truth, because it's exactly what happens in our country.
Yeah, there's complete lack of regulation. And I remember distinctly, like, a time many years ago, before I got into all this too, and I was looking at like a shampoo bottle, and it was like all these ingredients I didn't know what they were. And I remember just thinking what you said, like, I don't know what these are, but they must be safe or they wouldn't be in my products. And that's, I think, an assumption that so many people make. And I love how you said it's not just about like being natural or granola. It's like just awareness. Like, I think there's this mainstream awareness or thought still that like all this stuff is like okay for us because it's for sale, and you're some kind of weirdo if you don't think that, where it's really like, frankly, the opposite is true. So
well, my idea of people who were looking into holistic, things, we get that crunchy, version, and it's well, these are hippies sitting around campfires singing Kumbaya, right? They're, or they're people who, they stink, or they wear weird clothes, or, just the whole perception of what this all is. But in honesty, it's really just somebody who wants better for their overall health, is somebody who, wants to feel good, It's somebody who wants to have energy, wants to be able to sleep, wants to be able to, know that when I get to 80 years old, which is not that far away from me anymore, that I'm not going to be in a wheelchair in a nursing home looking out the window watching life go by. That the decisions I make today are going to affect what that 80-year-old version of me is going to look like.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us your own story. You said that it made an impact on your health, changing the toxins in your home. We don't, frankly, hear many stories about that either. So I'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. So, I like sharing this because I was the biggest skeptic and the biggest, you heard me, there's people that are walking around stinking with the dreadlocks and, it's just like all this, symbolism. But I had, at the time when I was introduced, in essential oils were my gateway into this lifestyle. I say it's my gateway drug. But when I was being talked to about that, I was running half marathons. So I was physically fit. I was running 20, 25 miles a week. I did not eat the best, but I had the opinion that I was in good physical condition because I was exercising in the extent that I was. I also was having all kinds of reproductive issues. I was having neurological issues. I was not sleeping well. Here's an example. My husband now, at the time, we had just met, gone out on like maybe 1 or 2 dates, and I had no one else to call. And I called him while I was at work saying, hey, are you free? Could you run to the store and pick me up some feminine products? Because I need them here where I'm at. And so this is, not a normal conversation that happens, with someone you just meet. But I didn't think twice of it because I needed this, and I didn't see this as being abnormal in my mind because this is the life that I was living, that it ruled and dictated all my actions.
Wow.
That I had. So, and I was diagnosed in menopause at the age of 36.
Wow.
I had a hysterectomy at the age of 37. I had headaches every single day of my life. I had migraine headaches at least once a week, if not twice, where I lost vision on my left side. And yet, remember, I thought I felt pretty darn good. And I had a friend that invited me to this essential oil class. You know the ones that I'm talking about. You're like, oh God, get away from me. And I did. I ignored her for a year and she kept inviting me. I'm like, okay, if I come, will you leave me alone and quit inviting me? So I went. And, I was in full throes of menopause because of the hysterectomy. They did leave ovary. So I was in all those symptoms, and I asked her about, some stuff with that. And she gave me something to try. And for the first night in years, I slept through the night. Wow. And so it was like, I don't know what that was. And I think it's magic potions, but it worked, and I want to know more. And so that led me down this whole entire path of discovery. And I started to learn about what I was using inside my home. And I changed out what I cleaned with and what I did laundry with. And as soon as I did that, I stopped having headaches and I stopped having migraines. Wow. I had them in years. And as I learned more and I changed more and more of my products, I stopped having menopause symptoms. And I stopped having, I shouldn't say I stopped having them. They were still there, but certainly not to the extent or the extreme that I was experiencing them before.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great example. And again, I don't think we hear many of those stories. I like how you say, you kind of thought you were doing well because you were running and you were probably really busy, checking off your to-do list. I think a lot of women are like that until it catches up with them. And it is often hormones that go really sideways for us, right? Because they're not they're not for survival, they're more for like reproducing and thriving. So that is a system that will kind of go first and also really disrupt your quality of life. So, and I'm pretty familiar with essential oils too. And yeah, I like that they are a gateway from kind of that mainstream life to, oh, there's like something else I can use. It just can be a fun way to open that discussion up, right?
Well, yeah, and that's all it did was it just opened that door enough that I could walk through and learn some things because, you know, I describe all the things that were going on with me. I'd been to specialists and been on all kinds of different medications, and you know, nothing was helping. And I just basically felt like this is how life is going to be. This is what I'm going to have to live with. And I still described that as feeling good and thinking that I was in good health. And I think there's so many women out there today that are the same way. You don't know what feeling good feels like. And I had no idea what it felt like. It was years into my journey until I knew what feeling good felt like.
Yeah, yeah.
And walking through and eliminating this and adding this in and taking this out and just trial and error, you know, to finally think, wow, you know, I feel pretty darn good.
Awesome. Yeah. So we're going to talk today. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just think so many of us have no idea because we feel so poorly and our bodies have become accustomed to it, you know, because it didn't happen overnight. It built up over time with us and we've become accustomed to it that we just don't know, you know, what it feels like to have good energy, you know, to sleep well, not be, you know, operating in a mental fog state.
Totally. I totally agree. Okay, so I like this topic we have for today, the 5 sources of toxins in our home and kind of like what to do about it. So that keeps it kind of focused, but we can take questions later. So are these 5 certain toxins or 5 areas? Get us started here.
So sure, I wrote a book called The Toxin Terminator, and this is my research and life experience over the last 7 years. And when I went through this path and walked down this journey, I really found 5 different areas that we were exposed to toxins within our home. And they're air, water, food, absorption, and mental.
Okay. Some of those are more obvious than others. You want to walk us through those?
Yeah. So let's just start with air. You know, my biggest tip for air is what do we think about that is like the most common thing that's in our air supply? And I'm talking about within our homes. We don't have control of what happens outside of the 4 walls of our home, but we have absolute control over what comes into our house. So when I think about air, the biggest thing I like to talk about is fragrance. Fragrance is in everything that we use. It's in our laundry soap, it's in our cleaning supplies. Many people use those plug-ins, or they've got candles that they're burning, or they've got the sprays that they're using in the rooms to mask odor. And these are all things that are a neurotoxin. They are a respiratory toxin. They are an endocrine toxin. And they're also irritating to the skin. So something that we don't want to use, and my tip with that is turn those products around and start reading them just like you do your food. There's labels on them for a reason, and you need to know what those ingredients are. And if it says fragrance, it's not something you want to have in your home. And we want to look for products that say fragrance free, because unscented still has a fragrance in there. And now they've added more chemicals to cover up the smell of the fragrance to make it unscented.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Very interesting. Okay. How about water? What's the topic there?
Lots of different things that come in through our water sources. You know, we've got, you know, agricultural runoff that's happening. We've got just even the disinfecting processes that goes through with the water, you know, the city municipalities. So we want to look at optimally a whole house water filtration system is the best thing to do. And but I get it. Not everybody can do that. Maybe you're in a temporary place, you're in an apartment. And so actually what I recommend is get a filter for your shower head. That is more important than what you're drinking. Equal, it's all important, but what you shower in is more, because when we stand in the shower, it's hot water. We're standing in there for 5 minutes or better. Some people take really long showers. We're opening up the pores to our skin, and we're just absorbing all of that in. The chlorine, the heavy metals, all the pesticides, all of that stuff is coming into our skin. And depending on the condition of your skin and what's being absorbed, it's anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes that it can be detected within the organs of your body and your blood.
Wow, very interesting. I think that's so true that people sometimes will, filter their drinking water and do nothing for the rest of the home. It's really common. And the shower head filters, what, like $40 or something? They're not.
Yeah, Aquasana has a really a very high rated one. In fact, I linked to it through my website because it's one of the best ones to use on your shower. It doesn't have to be expensive, and it doesn't have to be, life shattering to make these changes.
Yeah, and I will say that the home that I'm moving out of, we installed a whole house filter and a RO in the kitchen, and it was fairly affordable, but it is a pain to maintain, I will say. Like, so now when I'm moving to a new place, I might just go more for like the RO little small thing in the kitchen, and then a shower head just to save for me, it's like just too much of a hassle to change the filters. It's like kind of difficult. So
I know what you're using. I know what for us, I'll have to look up what system that we have, but it's like a rented system. So they come in and they service.
Oh, I like that. Yeah,
we don't have to do
anything. I actually have Aquasana.
Yeah, we just do a minimal, fee a month for that.
That's what I need, because I'm like, I don't want to be messing with like turning off the water, and I like that.
Ease. Listen to what you're saying, Bridget. If it's not easy for me to do this, I'm not going to incorporate into my lifestyle.
Exactly. So and now you said that there's a rental thing, and now I'm like, oh, okay, great. I'm glad we had this conversation, because I can probably hire the same company since we're in the same city. So yeah, I think it has to do with easier. If you're in an apartment, you're not going to install anything like that. So just use, I know a Berkey isn't perfect, but I do like Berkey water filter as one option. It's definitely going to get a lot of stuff out of there, if not everything. So
Berkey is good. There's a, combination. Reverse osmosis is really, really good for our drinking water. But do remember, it's taking everything out. So if you're lacking in minerals and nutrients in your diet, then you're going to want to add some back in for your drinking water. Which can be as easy as adding a little bit of, pink Himalayan salt, into your water, add a little bit of lemon, and you're good to go. But, that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah. Most of the ROs will have like a remineralization thing, but then I'm like, how much is it really doing? It's kind of hard to say. So I like the idea of adding a little more. Kathleen, hi Kathleen. Kathleen's asking the name of the shower filter again.
If you go into Aquasana has one, and I installed it on my shower head. It's so easy to do.
And your site is aimeecarlson.com, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'll add that in there.
Yeah, if you go in my site, anything that we talk about today on my website, there's up at the top on the menu, there's products I love, I believe is what it says. And I list out all the different, companies that I personally use their stuff and recommend.
Okay, awesome. And Kathleen, I don't think she said her rental company, but it's probably, it's probably, you got to look locally. Because
everybody has them. All municipalities have them that you can just rent the equipment. And the good thing about renting it is that, if something updated comes, you get the update without having to buy a whole new system. So like we even had them, they put new spigot faucets and stuff. In fact, they change those out once a year for us. So You know, and
Great.
we don't pay any additional for it. So
Okay, cool. Okay, so
okay.
food toxins. I'm curious, people on the call, what questions you have? Because I think food, as we talked about earlier, people think about food and exercise, but are they really thinking about toxins
Yeah.
in their food as opposed to just like, oh, what's the best thing to eat? So to tell us why food is a key source of toxins.
Right. So, you know, obviously the big one we think about is pesticides, you know, the pesticides that are used within our farming community. And we certainly want to avoid those, and the way that we can is by purchasing organic foods. I hear from all kinds of people saying, oh my gosh, I can't afford to buy all organic. And so, you know, my comment to you is, well, then think about what you eat the most of. So if you're eating grapes every day, then grapes should be something you purchase organic. If you're eating salads every day, then the lettuces that you're purchasing should be organic. If you eat oranges just maybe once a month, maybe not as important to buy organic oranges, right? So use some common sense with it. And also meal planning will help you, so that you know, I used to buy all this produce and it would go bad before I got to use it. You know, so if you meal plan, that's going to help as well.
Okay. This is why we are a good team, because I've said, I think to you, like, I love these topics, but it's so much to cover. And I will say that even when you eat organic, because we see it when we test our clients, you have pesticide in you, 100%. So you still need to detox, even if you eat mostly organic. Or, you know, our clients are amazing. They're doing like farm shares and all this stuff. And then we'll see these levels that are still so high, and other weird stuff being really high too. And, you know, we often just don't even know where it's coming from, except to say, like, it's just prevalent in our environment now, and in our drinking water, and our grasses, is everywhere. So it's gonna get into you. So
well, and organic does not mean no chemicals. That, you know, it does not mean that. Organic just means it's restricted to the amount of chemicals that they use. So optimally, knowing your farmer and talking with your farmer and knowing what their practices are is the best thing to do. But, you know, again, what situation are you in? You know, so you have to go with the best option for what environment you are in and can do. I know when I'm in Iowa, my options for organic is extremely limited because I'm in a very rural community.
Oh, okay.
So I get down here to Arizona, and the organic is huge, you know, and a plethora of choices for me to make. So in Iowa, I have my own garden. You know, so I'm growing my own food, and I know what I'm getting because I don't have that ability. And gardening now is so easy. They got vertical gardens and, you know, all kinds of stuff. You can easily do things yourself.
Nice, nice. Anything else you want to say about food?
Well, there's a whole lot we can say about food, but honestly, if you can eliminate and change that one thing, because, you know, we all know we want to be eating more whole foods. Foods that come from the earth, you know, are the foods that are going to be most nourishing, you know, for us. If it's coming out of a box, if it's coming out of a bag, it is highly preserved. It has all kinds of artificial flavorings and colorings and GMO and all of that, and it's just not something that we want to add into our body.
Yeah, and all those whole foods are really the most detoxifying as well. So, yeah. Okay, so absorption, I'm guessing this is like beauty products and that kind of a thing, or tell us more.
Yeah, no, that's where we're talking about our personal care items. But we're also talking about cleaning items, because how many people walk around their house barefoot? You know, I do. That means any surface I'm walking on is being absorbed into my body through my feet. You know, so I want to make sure that what I'm cleaning with is good, clean stuff. And here's going to be my tip, because when we talk about absorption, this whole thing could be an hour long, because there's that many chemicals. There's that many things that we want to avoid. And I don't want to overwhelm people. So instead, I'm going to give you 2 different apps that you can download.
Oh, okay.
They're free for your phone. One is called Think Dirty, and one is called Healthy Living by the EWG, which is the Environmental Working Group. Both of these, And these are the beauty, this is where I love having these two apps, because these apps, you can either scan the barcode of a personal care product or type it in and it'll give you the safety rating from a 0 to a 10 of this product. Now here's what, number one is anything that is a 3 or lower is allowed into my home. You get to make your decision of what you're going to allow. But not only does it give you the safety rating, it lists in both apps exactly why. It's going to go to the ingredients and tell you what this ingredient is, what it does to the body, and why it got the rating that it got. So this was an app, Think Dirty, that I used when I first got into this journey to help me understand how to read a label. So the more I did this, the more I started kind of seeing some patterns and some things that I want to make sure I'm avoiding. And then before long, I didn't have to use the app anymore. And so I highly recommend these apps as a great starting point to really educate yourself of what's in your personal care products.
Yeah, I love those. Those are very practical tips. And yeah, and then you kind of slowly learn more about label reading. That's great. I missed this question. I don't know if you know an answer, but Terry asked about the multi-pure water system. Do you know that one?
I don't know that one.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Sorry, Terry.
And here's the other thing too on water, just so you guys know, I don't claim to have all of the answers with this, but every water municipality is different as to what chemicals are in there. So the EWG has a great resource. You can go in and type in water and it'll show this resource on their page. You can type in your zip code and get what your water safety test is. And so when you know what's in it, you can decide what filtering system is going to be best for you to use, because some filtering systems are different.
Yeah, it's true. But I will give well, I haven't seen that one you mentioned. Does that include, will that include like pesticides and different residues in the water? Mm-hmm. Or, oh, will, okay. And that's
absolutely. And it'll show you, I think when I did mine test on here down in Arizona, because in Iowa, I'm on a well, so I can't get the test there, but here in Arizona, I want to say there were like 13 contaminants in the water that were beyond a deemed safe level.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to say, you can also, I did a lot of studying on water, and, you know, you can look up your local, how would I say, like water testing, but they're not testing for pesticides or like residues from pharmaceuticals or anything like that. So yeah, I'll have to see this map and what's included on there. I also put in the notes, there's a business called mytapscore.com, and they'll test for you. And it's, you know, more expensive the more stuff you test. But if you really want to know, and then, you know, the way I learned is you want to match your filter to what is in your area. Like we have a lot of arsenic here in Arizona is one thing we've got. So
right, and lots of different filtering systems. There's, you know, charcoal and carbon and UV light, and, you know, lots and lots of different ways to filter. And again, knowing what it is, and EWG tested all. That's what I liked about theirs, is that, you know, your city will give you the test. I don't trust that, you know, coming from them. I want an outside test that's telling me everything that's in that water.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so last one was mental. So mental toxins. This is going to be interesting. Tell us
this
about
is a fun one, because you can do all the things physically to make yourself healthy and have that optimal health. But if mentally you're not there and you have toxins, you're not going to have that peak. You know, it's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together, right? You know, you put the edge pieces together, and then you start putting the little different pictures together, and it all starts filling in to form this beautiful picture. And that's what our health is like too. So mental is I like to look at it as two parts. There's external mental stuff that's happening outside of ourselves, and then there's internal mental toxicities happen within ourselves. So outside would be things like energy, would be things like stress. Think about it. Have you ever walked into a room and you went like, ooh, I don't want to know that person, or I don't want to be around that person. You just kind of felt that energy,
Yeah.
right? The same thing, you can walk into a room and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to meet this person. I want to know that, you feel their energy.
True.
So we have to know that we need to protect it. We've all heard you become like the 5 people you're most around. Well, there's a reason for it. It's because we pick up on their energies. We start adapting. If you are surrounding yourself with people who are living an unhealthy lifestyle, who don't exercise, they're overweight, they're very negative with their thoughts and their words, guess what? You're going to be the same way. You are going to naturally start adapting their lifestyle because these are the people that you're associated with on a daily basis. Same thing with, so there's toxic words, there's toxic thoughts, there's toxic people. And sometimes that gets really hard because, you might be that toxic person, right?
Sometimes we are, right? It's good to
I got
know.
to take a look going, I think that's me in this given situation. And sometimes those toxic people can be family members. And that's really hard to work with. And that's where we get to work on healthy boundaries, developing what, your levels are. For instance, I used to think, well, number one, I learned that I was an extremely introverted person. I do really well with small groups and limited time. I'm not an extrovert. I had to learn to be one, but I'm naturally not. And my immediate family is 20 people. So when we're together, my kids and my grandkids, it's a lot, for my introverted person. And what happened is over, time, it's like I would get irritated and I would get judgmental and critical, is what would start happening to me. And I thought that there was something wrong with me. But really what it was is my body's trigger saying, Aimee, you need time alone. That was my body's symptom and trigger saying it's time to get away and it's time to be alone, whether it be 15 minutes, an hour, whatever that's going to look like. And so learning to identify what those triggers are, that there's not anything necessarily wrong with you, but you can have those healthy boundaries. Even when it's within your family. I love my kids and my grandkids to death, but I can't do it for extended periods of time without, losing that energy piece of my peace and calm.
Right. Are you building in like, okay, in the mornings I take a walk, or, that's great. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit and read a book now for a little while.
Yeah, totally. I think that is really healthy too. And I've been kind of in my own practice trying to think about how to weave in more about kind of the same piece, because I don't want to just generalize and be like, oh, like certain people are toxic, because it's more, sometimes, like you said, we can be that toxic person too, or our own negativity can be at play. But it does, it definitely does play into our health and happiness.
Absolutely. We don't have to, I didn't have to say anything to my family that,
Right.
it's all on me, and it's all choices that I make. Now, the other external one is stress, and that's a whole nother topic, but you have to find ways because stress is there. It's not going away. It is always there. So you have to find ways of how are you going to operate within that. And, for me, it's prayer. Maybe it's meditation for you. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's sitting and reading a book. Maybe it's coloring. Maybe it's, we find ways that we can deal with our stress that's not overloading our system. Journaling is another huge one that I like to use when I'm feeling, stressed. And then getting into nature. Getting into nature is huge to ground and just reconnect and feel at peace.
Yeah, and I guess if we want to kind of give it a simple summary, if you're getting like adrenaline or high cortisol from either being overwhelmed or too extroverted or whatever the thing is, it is toxic to your body. Just
Yes.
that hormone imbalance is probably some of what you were describing when you were in your 30s too. If, you know, you were running around like a lot of us do in America, you know, it's kind of eating you up, and it's imbalancing systems. So that's a great point. Carol has a question. I don't know if you'll have the answer on this one, but she's wondering about detoxifying from airborne mosquito pesticide spraying and maybe ways to protect your own garden from it.
Oh, God. Lots of different natural things that you can do to protect your garden. Right off the top of my head, and I'll have to go back and look at notes, but there's plants that you can plant within each other that are going to feed off each other, that'll nourish each other, and also be a kind of a natural pesticide, you know, because they work within each other. Having healthy plants, nourished soil is going to make them healthy and more disease resistant and resistant to any pesticides, so you don't have to use those chemicals. But there's a lot of essential oils that you can use that help prevent you know, outside interferences with your garden. The sprays to use, peppermint is one of them. Pepperment's
cool.
good for like everything. Yeah.
Cool.
And you can just mix that in with water, a little bit of salt, shake it up and spray it, you know, on your plants in your soil.
Oh, interesting.
So,
yeah, and I know, Carol, to detoxify your body, apple cider vinegar and kombucha are two nice ones. I don't know about specifically the mosquito pesticide, but in general, they're detoxifying. We have that little green drink. I don't know if you saw it, Carol. It's lemon, cilantro, and some greens. You could do sprouts. That's like a really easy little detoxifying drink. So there's so many ways to detoxify, right? Dry brushing, castor oil packs, Epsom salt bath. My kind of life theory is just doing those things every day.
yes.
You don't have to do all of them, but
Right.
you build that treasure chest of things you can do, and essential oils can be part of that too for detoxification within the body.
Even simple little things, Bridgit, like drinking lots of water. Make sure those kidneys are working the way that they're supposed to work. They need a lot of water to be filtering things out of the body. Sweating. You know, sweating. If you don't get out and exercise and sweat, take a bath with a half a cup of Epsom salt and a half a cup of baking soda. Sit in it for 20 minutes. You're going to be sweating. That's going to, you know, promote that sweating process in the body, and then we get that out. And a bug spray is topical, right? And it's come in, and so we want to sweat that out.
True. Yeah, they've definitely done some good studies on sauna and what kind of comes out in your sweat. And it's not just coming out in your sweat, it's also coming out in your urine and your stool. So there's stuff happening on the inside too. Good question, Carol. Any other questions before we wrap up? I'm excited so many people are on here live, and you may not have questions top of mind. Carol, Carol, I'll put the link here in the notes for that recipe.
Broccoli is a really good
Yes.
vegetable to eat to detox the body.
You know, and here's like a little random tip that I kind of learned from a friend of mine. I was out at like a Thai restaurant with her years ago, and she was like, "And can I add broccoli to that?" And I was like, "I didn't know you could just add broccoli." So now, like, whenever I go for Thai food, I'm always like, "Please add broccoli." You know, it's like a buck or whatever. So just stuff like that is so simple. But it does, you know, just get you more broccoli. So, and then this recipe you can do with broccoli sprouts. This version of it may look a little old and it might not mention sprouts, but now I kind of teach it as like, you know, you can do it with broccoli sprouts, which you can grow yourself or just buy at the store. We sell a broccoli sprout and seed capsule, and I feel so good about taking it because I know so much about broccoli sprouts that like I just feel like, oh, I'm like doing something so good for myself. Amazing at actually moving pesticides and herbicides, supports your immune system. It's just like antioxidant, just tons of stuff. So it's, you know, it's an expensive supplement, but you don't need to take a lot of it. It's just like one a day, or sometimes when I'm under the weather, I'll take a few, and it just feels, You know, when you just take something and you're just like feel good about it. I always just feel good about doing
Have you done any research into algae?
Not a lot. Tell us.
So I encourage you to just look up. There's two different kinds of algae. There's chlorella and spirulina, and they are so good. They detox the body at like 100 or 1,000 times more than a lot of other things that we use. And these are super good. And you want to make sure that when you get algae, or if that's something that you want to look into, you can get it as tablets. You can sometimes get them as liquid, but be real careful because a lot of algae sources have lead in them. You know, so we want to make sure that we're watching. One of the ones that I use on a regular basis is energy bits.
Energy bits?
Energy bits, yeah.
Okay. I did used to use chlorella a lot when I was detoxing more heavily.
Yeah.
It also seems to help with energy is the name of this. It can help you build your red blood cells, which are often really damaged under conditions of mold, but other conditions as well. It can be, you kind of have to watch your amount because it can be a little like loose stool sometimes for people to do too much chlorella. It's cold according to Chinese medicine. So, but that doesn't mean you have to take none. I have actually found a couple people allergic too, but these are, I'm just kind of giving you the warning list, but generally it's a nice supplement, and you'll I think generally find a little bit more energy from using it daily as well.
Yeah, that company that does energy bits, they have energy bits, beauty bits, vitality bits, and recovery bits. So they might have different strains of the algae in there depending on what source and what you're using. They're just little teeny tiny you know, tablets, and you can take, you know, a couple a day. They come in a bag of like 1,000. So
interesting. I'll have to look that one up. Yeah, I can't remember the brands I was using back in the day, but there's some that are Japanese kind of brands because they have little algae farms and they're into
it all comes from over in the eastern.
Okay.
I don't think, well, any of the good sources are going to come from Asian markets.
Okay, interesting. Well, I love all these tips, and yeah, you can go to Aimee's site. I'll link it again on here to find out more. And she's got her book. You can subscribe to her podcast. It's all kind of the same name, Aimee, right?
There's a free toxic risk assessment on the website too. So if you don't know what you're exposed to, take that. It's just 20 questions and it's free, and you can figure out, you know, what different areas am I exposed to and, you know, might not have thought about.
And we have that link on the Facebook Live, and I'll put it again in the chat here. And yeah, that's a fun place to start. Well, thank you so much, Aimee. I'm glad we're connecting, and we'll have to get together and take a hike or do something here in Phoenix.
Oh, I would love that. I'm all about being outside. So
sounds good. Well, thanks everyone for being live and learning with us. Appreciate it. Till next time, I'll be back next week with somebody. I forgot to look at it, but I'll be back. Bye, everybody.